Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and this amazing series. I'm Aditya. In this video, we will see the concept of React hook and we will see how we can use one of the React hook to bind our data with our form and other elements. So without any further ado, let's begin. Right. So let's first understand what's happening here. So we have a login form that we created in the last video, and go in the login.js, we have the form component, then we have a form component here, and we have some input here, which is coming from the form group. Now I want to attach something over here, but before that, it's good that I commented over here so that I can say it in this video. Uh, I have added some stylings behind the scene to make it a bit responsive. So I'll push the once this tutorial is completed, I will push the code on GitHub and also share the link of the GitHub repo. So you can just see like how where the responsive code is added. It's just like this like few tailwind classes, or rather like it's literally three tailwind classes here and there. So like literally this width and yeah, this width over here, and yeah, I guess here also just float right to have the button to be float on the right side. But yeah, that's it. So sorry for that. In the previous video I was not able to do that, just to keep the video short, and was like just focusing more on the concept rather than making it more beautiful. But I just kind of thought, okay, let's make it a bit beautiful as well. So okay, let's proceed then. So now I want this to be like a data binding where I type something here and it is reflected on my screen. So what do I mean by binding? So it's, let's take another example. So let's remove this for now and let's write here a div. Now when I go back to my screen, to my browser over here, so let's remove this. If I type something here, let's say I want to display that text over here. So if I type whatever I type to this input, I want to display that text over here. So let's say we take a variable. So let's take a variable, let's say let name. So let's call that variable as name. And now whatever I type, I want that name to be displayed here. Now, if you have used JavaScript with some for HTML before, or like vanilla JavaScript, there you might have seen that it's document.add event listener, then you listen for the load event, or windows.add event listener, then you listen for the load event, or you can straight away write a function on this where you say @change or on change or something like that. Actually it's on change, @changes for view. So you have like on change or on key press or on click, all those events, and then based on that event you take the value of the input and then you put it in the variable and you display it. So it's kind of like a bit complicated way. Also, if you have used React before, with class-based components, there you might have find that using states or writing the logic of state might be a bit complex. So to solve that problem and make life easy for functional components, there is a concept of hook. So hooks, as the name suggests, they are used to hook in to the React lifecycle. Okay, when I say lifecycle, is the component lifecycle. So every component has a lifecycle. So it starts from like uh, before mount and after mount and destroy and then updates and all those life cycles. Whenever you render a component or re-render a component, it goes through that life cycle. To manage the data in that component, when I say data, sorry, in this case the name is one of the data, or you could say the state, one of the state in this component, which is name. Now to manage this and render this on the component and make it go hand in hand in the component. So suppose when I type here in this input, when I type my name, so that this name should also update, or if the entire component has updated, then this name also preserve its value. For that case, we use a hook known as useState. Okay, so let's import that useState over here. Now I'm going to say import useState, and this is going to come from React. Now, this useState is a function which will return a destructured array or an array where there will be a variable, let's say call its name, and there will be a function for that variable which would be like for setting the value of that variable. So we will call it as set name. So let's do that quickly. And now this thing is gonna be const. Okay. So here, when I use the destructor syntax of JavaScript, let's say we have name, which is our variable initially, and we have a function to set the value to that variable name, which we are calling as setName. This will come when we call useState function. Now, there is no hard and fast rule that you have to write name or set name. Suppose if we are doing for age, we could write age and set age. If there was like say birth date, then birth date and set birth date, something like that. So it depends. And generally the nomenclature should be like whatever your variable is, the function should be like a setter function. So suppose if it's name, then it should be set name, something like that. So once we have this thing actually should always be class called inside the function. Okay, it cannot be called outside the function because states or hooks are called inside the component or the function of the component. Now I will write here on change. So whenever there is a change on this input, there will be a function which will take the event as a parameter, and this function will call the setName function. So it will say setName, and inside this setName we will pass the value that we want to store or assign to this name variable. So that value will be nothing but e.target.value. So what did we did here? So we have a on change event, or we just assigned an on change event on this input. Whenever this event happens, so whenever we type something in this input in simple words, the function will run, and inside this function, which is this entire thing, here we are calling the setName function, and to that setName function we are passing this e.target.value, which is this value. So now if I go back, like save this and go back over here and type something, you will see whatever I have typed here, it's reflected over here. Also, if I want to give a default value over here, let's say the default value was my name again over here, and if I go back again here, you will see this thing over here is reflected, but it's not reflected over here. Okay, so it's kind of like looks two-way data binding, but it's actually not two-way data binding, it's a one-way data binding. So whatever the value is here, it's not binded over here. However, to bind that, to make it two-way, what we do is we simply say the value of this is name, like this. Okay, and now it becomes two-way data binding. Okay, so whatever is the value over here, or whatever is the value in the script, that's the value in the element, and whatever is the value in the element, that's the value in the script or the variable. Okay, cool. Now let's get back our original code over here. Let's remove this, and let's take it a step forward by using this logic of useState in our form. Now inside our form, you will see that we have a form group component. The form group component is inside a form component, and you'll see that we have the name, email, password, all those stuffs. Okay, now if we use the useState logic over here, we can only bind one variable at a time. But if we pass the function of useState to this, which will go in turn to this, in that case we can bind variables dynamically, or we can have useState used on multiple variables. So let's do that. So let's first import here useState. I know it's a bit complicated, but once you get a hang of useState, you'll understand, like, or the hook, easy to use. So here we will be calling it from React, and then over here we will say, so whatever data we want, so we have name, email, and password. So we'll say const name set name, that will be useState. Then there will be another, so that will be again email set email, that will come from another useState, and there will be another which would be password and set password. Now that will come from another useState. Now you can take three different useStates like how I have done, which might look messy, because if there are like multiple form fields, then you will have lots of use states. But as we have just 3, so it should be fine. But if you want to have it like an object where you have something like this, let's say const and then set form data, then you will have a use state, and inside that you can pass an object, and each key will resemble the form input. So for instance, there can be name, which will have default value of this. There will be email, which have default value of this, and there will be password, which will be a default value of this. So here we have the initial state where the name, email, and password are all blank. Okay. Now, if I want to bind it with this one, in that case, all I have to do is, if I'm using this object syntax, then in that case I have to do form value would be like form dot whatever the value is. So in this case, form dot name for name, email value will be form dot email, password value will be form dot password, and the set form will take a key and the value in that case, and it will become like a bit difficult to manage, but it's manageable. Okay, now let's go back over here again. Let's remove this, and now we have to pass this thing, this use state set name function, to this form group. So let's take a prop over here, and for this, on this thing, we will call that prop as set value. Okay, which is going to be a function. You can name this function anything you like, doesn't matter, because it's a prop. And what we are going to do is, we will say here on change, on this input change, there will be a function which will be calling this set value, and it will set the value of this target. Okay, now when we go to this form over here, and let's say we write here set value, so that's the prop, and this prop is taking the function of set name because it's for name, and we can just replicate this for other components. So here and here, so we can say this one is doing for email and this one is doing for password. Now this will automatically set the value of, because this function will go to the set value, and set value will handle the input for us, which is over here like this. Now next thing we need to do is just check whatever we have written here is actually working, like it's not just anything there. So what we will do is we'll also bind the value here. So I'm gonna say value, whatever value comes from the prop over here, which is our value prop. Okay, now this value prop will take over here, so then we just need to mimic it over here as well, but with different value. This will be email and this will be password. So let's see when we hit this submit button. So we can now call on this form a function. So we'll say on submit. So whenever this form is submitted, call the submit function. So we'll say form submit function. Okay, form submit. Okay, now let's take that function over here. So we will say const form submit. It's gonna be a function which will take an event, because submit is like submitting a form, it's an event in itself. So this function can take that event, and then we will say e.prevent default, because we don't want to redirect after submit. Okay, and here let's console.log name and email. Let's go and see if it works. So let's go back over here. Let's inspect this. So let's make it over here like this. So now if I type here example.com, now we are having a small error here. It says the component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. And if we log in, if we go, we are getting undefined because the name is not there, but the email is there. Now what does this error means? So to solve this error, it's pretty simple. You just pass blank value over here like this. So it's no more undefined. There is some defined value for the initial name, password, email, whatever it is. If we refresh this and type again, there is not, that error will disappear. Example.com. Okay, let's say login. There is the email. Let's say for register, let's say Aditya. Let's register, and there it is. Now, in the next video, we will use or we will make an API call using this data, and then we will see how to manage the token that we get and how to handle the token and how to send the further API requests. So that's all for today's video. See you in the next video. Goodbye.